La vida.
Welcome to Unmasking Humanity 21 Questions with Joshua T. Berglan. I'm Joshua T. Berglan. Some call me the world's mayor, a dreamer, and a doer who's all about breaking down walls, amplifying the voiceless, and turning stories into movements. As an omnimedia producer, I've poured my heart into joshuatberglan.com, a platform brimming with free resources, manuals, guides, and tools to help anyone navigate the fourth and fifth industrial revolutions, monetize their gifts, and own their narrative. Need help bringing this your vision to life? I've got services too. Everything from producing podcasts, movies, and events to publishing books and launching products. My mission is to empower, connect, and inspire. And today I'm sitting down with someone who embodies that spirit in spades, Dr. Robert Carpenter, or Dr. Rob. After surviving a near fatal hit and run, this man turned his second chance into a global calling, empowering people through storytelling, creative leadership, and mental health. With a life as diverse as his heritage, part Black, part white, part Native American, and experiences spanning the White House, Hollywood sets, and classrooms worldwide, Dr. Rob's a UCLA professor, thriller novelist, and a change maker who's helping us all become who we're meant to be. His novel, Of Kennedy and King, and book, The Creative Leader, drop in 2025. And trust me, they're going to shake things up. Let's peel back the layers, tap into his wisdom, and see how one man's journey is lighting the way for so many. Here we go. Dr. Rob, welcome to Unmasking Humanity. How are you today, sir?
Joshua, it is such a pleasure to be with you. I love your story. I love what you're doing for humanity. I love your voice. It is so soothing and full of experience and wisdom and healing. And so it's just a pleasure to be on with you today.
Thank you for having me, sir. Now, before we get into your 21 questions, I would love to know, what are you grateful for today and why?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. Recently, I came across this idea of when somebody asks you, how are you doing? Instead of saying, okay, to respond with, I am trying to find the good in this moment. And so there's always something or multiple things for which we can be grateful. And ever since I started responding with that, I'm starting to see so much good despite what's going on out there, because there's good in society, there's good in circumstances, there's good in people. And finding the gold in people, not just the shadows in people, not just the shadows in circumstances, not just the shadows in society, because I think so often our minds, because of our negativity bias, are trained to see the darkness, and we have to see the light. And so just training my mind to be looking for the good in the moment. That's what I'm grateful for.
Gosh, that's such a good answer. I got to tell you, I get excited. It's not very often that I get a really, really amazing answer, but that was really amazing and unique. I have not heard an answer like that before. So this is already off to a good start. Okay. Are you ready for your 21 questions, Dr. Rob?
Locked and loaded.
Let's do it. What's a childhood memory from your diverse neighborhood that shaped who you are today?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I was about 8 or 9 years old. I was living in a little village in Ohio named Dresden. It was 1,000 people, famous for the world's largest basket and world's largest basket building. The guy who was behind this little town basically became a multi-billion-dollar basket weaver. And so everyone was employed by this guy who's illiterate functionally. And I remember as a little kid, I said, well, if this guy can make money on baskets, I can make money on anything. So I enlisted my sister. We went from home to home in the neighborhood. We picked people's flowers from their yards. We wrapped them in a bow, then we sold them back to them. And so that was my first experience of being an entrepreneur, of taking the limited resources we had and making them available. Of course, the business shut down after a couple of months because in a 1,000-person town, people start to realize, wait a second, how are they so precise what these flowers are selling to us? It's just our favorites.
Oh my God. So there's so many things in that first answer that just blow my mind. First of all, I said, if you know media, you can monetize anything. And if you want to be an underwater basket weaver, you can monetize that if you know media. I say this all the time. So the fact that you used that, I used to organize basketball tournaments because we had a half-court basketball court in our back court, and I used to charge people to play.
Nice.
I would start little tournaments, and I would take a commission. How hilarious. Okay, we're already vibing. I love this. All right, question 2. Surviving that hit and run. Oof. What's the first thought that hit you? What's the first thought that hit you when you realized you made it?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. That I had experienced a miracle from God. That I knew as I went through that, as the next day, somebody didn't make it. They were hitting the same exact area. And I realized that I had experienced a miracle because living in Los Angeles, it's the hit and run capital of the United States.
Yeah.
And I realized that my life was spared for a reason. And I do believe in miracles. I do believe in fate. And I think the fact that it was overall a miracle, that if I rewind it just a bit, I was in the hospital. I said, how bad does my face look? They said, you have facial lacerations, you have a skull fracture, and this is going to be very expensive. And I said, no, I don't. And so a few weeks after they took the mummy mask I was wearing off, I said, Doc, how do I look? And then they said, you have a lovely face. And I said, hallelujah. Then I went to the neurologist, Joshua, and the neurosurgeon, and they looked at my brain scans and they said, wait a second, you don't have a skull fracture. They misdiagnosed you. They went into the back, true story. They came back out and they said, this is all gratis. And I said, what does that mean? They said, it's on the house. You don't have to pay for any of this. So I truly experienced a miracle from God. I remember going into church, shortly after that, they said, do you have anything to say after surviving this? And I said, I only have 3 words. Devil, you missed. I think for your listeners who are going through something, they're still here for a reason. And that devil that's trying to get them, whether it's anxiety, whether it's stress, whether it's a person, whether it's financial setback, whatever it is, that they're still here. And that devil can't get them. They can push it back.
Amen. That's so good. Dadgummit, that's good. We're only in question 2. We could have stopped there. Question 3. How did that near-death moment flip a switch to dedicate your life to empowering others?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. To be totally transparent, Joshua, I think before that moment, I was extremely selfishly ambitious. So part of my resume is because I was focused on career advancement, living the American dream, and only really focusing on achieving my own goals. And at that point, I realized it's not about me, that life is but a whisper, but an echo. It's so fast, and that I was spared for a reason. It wasn't just to continue checking career boxes or financial boxes, but that it had to be connected to something bigger, a purpose, a meaning, and people bigger than myself. And so it took several years to actually work that out, to have that type of clarity over why I was spared. And I do believe it is to encourage and empower and inspire. We're always called to serve a people. Whatever our gifts are, whatever our callings are, whether in medicine or in law or in media, we're called with our skills to empower other individuals. They're not to financially aggrandize ourselves, not to professionally aggrandize ourselves. One of the things I say as a university professor is that professors are there for you, not the other way around. We're here to serve you, but so often professors across the country and the world, they believe it's about their research. They believe it's about their career. It's like, no, it's about the kids. It's about you, about helping you. That's why we're here. And if you look back at every deathbed confession or regret, people will always say, I wish I would have made it more about people and not about myself, other people.
You're speaking all my love languages right now. I love it. All right, next question. Growing up with such a mix of cultures, what's one lesson that blend you carry with you? Let me say that again. Growing up with such a mix of cultures, what's one lesson from that blend you carry with you? That
we're all very similar, but we think that we're so different. And being part Black, part white, part Native American, growing up in a primarily Latino neighborhood with Jewish and Asian best friends, and people think that their problems, they think that their hopes, their dreams, their pain is individual to them or to their own communities. And we all share the same dreams. We all share the same desires. We all share the same setbacks. And so there is a similarity to us. And part of what's challenging, and if you will go to my book of King and King, what was so difficult for Bobby Kennedy, for example, and Dr. King was that they were personality and spiritual mirrors to each other. That's why they disagreed so much, because they reflected each other's psychiatric traumas, but they didn't want to admit it. They reflected each other's stubbornness, but they didn't want to admit it. I think so often we don't think that other communities have similar challenges as us, or maybe we say our community has more challenges than these other people, and so we're always going around judging others as being different than us, that we have less or worse or more or better. And at the same end of the day, we're all created in the image of God, and we're all here for a short period of time. We're all rookies at life, and we're just trying to do the best we can. And by pointing out differences and assuming we're different, that doesn't get us anywhere. We're on the brink, Joshua, of a civil war in the United States because people don't think that there's common ground, not just politically, but ethnically and religiously and in so many ways.
Another mic drop good in there too. Gosh, man. It's like you reading inside my brain. I love this. I feel like
I love how simpatico we are.
Oh my gosh, this is speaking right to my heart. Okay, I'm not going to make this about me. Okay, from the White House to Hollywood, what's a wild experience that still makes you laugh?
Ooh, that's fantastic. One, neither was expected. I don't think that when I was growing up that you could plan that type of thing, the Renaissance background. I would say one experience was with The Rock when I was working on the set of Ballers. And I'm about 6 feet tall, and of course he's much bigger than that. And I remember looking at him and I just said, that man's 1,000 pounds of muscle wrapped in baby skin. I mean, it was just really incredible. And I would say, and it's not true of every case, but it's true of him. It's true of other celebrities I've worked with, like Sandra Bullock and people who are very high profile. I've noticed, and I'm not saying, again, it's not true of everyone, but I've noticed that the more high profile they are, the more humility many of them seem to have. The less that they felt like they needed to toot their own horn. Whereas I worked with more minor celebrities or more social media influencers, and their heads were bigger. And there's an old saying that some old school stars said, if you're not famous in Karachi, you're not famous. Or if my grandma doesn't know who you are, nobody knows who you are. And so I think that the ones who've had the biggest successes have valued people the most. And everything that I know about The Rock, he values people. Sandra Bullock values people. The people that value people are the ones that have huge careers, and more importantly, are the ones that inspire people, because it is so easy to be admired from afar. It's much harder to be admired from people that actually know you, that work with you.
That is so profoundly said and very, very true. That would be my experience as well. Just from producing events and getting to be on set with, I'm not going to name drop, but that sentiment exactly. That and the daytime stars. The daytime stars, none of them take themselves too serious, and they're amazing, but they're also the hardest working people in Hollywood. So I love them. I love doing those award shows. I just can't love them enough. Okay, you've lived all over the U.S., Middle East. What's a place that changed how you see the world?
Ooh, that's fantastic. I would say New York. When I was in New York City, because I didn't realize how challenging the world could be. I was mugged there. I was 21, and I was going to a house party in Berglan, and Berglan was safe. And I was going back to the subway. It was about 1 a.m, and 2 guys jumped me and from behind, and I turned around. I had an umbrella. I turned around and I said, "Seriously?" And they kind of paused for a second, so I threw my umbrella at them and I took off. I was a cross-country captain in high school, so I ran for 2 miles. And I was running as fast as I could, but I was also a sprinter in school, so I was both fast as well as enduring. And there was a police precinct about 2 miles in that I saw and I ran into. And I would say that experience showed me that the world isn't such a nice place, because it's one thing when you're young and you see the death and the robberies and the murders and all of those things on television. It's a different thing when you experience that up close and personal, and you realize not everyone has your best interests in heart. And so I think that was challenging, and it's still challenging, honestly, to think that there's some people who don't care about other individuals, care about human life, care about making the world better. As I think Alfred said in Dark Knight, he said, some men just want to see the world burn. And that's been a difficult thing to understand, in not just the abstract, but really kind of in a personal way.
Wow, that's interesting. I have a story to relate to that too, but that's going to take us way over time. So, but I can relate to that, but it's in New Orleans for me. I felt safer in other parts of the world. Like, I got robbed in Costa Rica. I'm not going to go off in the story, but I felt safer when that happened, and I felt better about it than when it happened in New Orleans.
Wow.
And it was just the circumstances, but still, it's amazing how that works. There was like an ethical way of being robbed in Costa Rica that did not happen in New Orleans. That was not so ethical. Anyway.
Wow.
Storytelling's your superpower. What's the first story you told that felt like it mattered to people?
Ooh, that is a fantastic one. I would say in college, the story that mattered was the narrative that I was beginning to understand about myself, and understand that I actually had something unique to say and that I wasn't an echo. And that's taken me many years to really flesh out, in terms of, we have something very important. I think every person has a life message, and that life message takes time to hone and to practice. And so I think for me, it was really embracing that multi-ethnic and that Renaissance perspective, because the world forces you into categories. You're black or you're white, or you have one career or you have another career. And you think, though, if you look at many of the greatest people from the past, even many of the Nobel Prize winners, for example, if you go deep into their biographies, the majority of them, they checked multiple boxes. But it's conveniently left out of their biographies that, for example, let's say like Albert Einstein as a good example. We know he was an incredible physics mind, but he also played in orchestras around the world. He played the violin. He loved music. And there's so many examples like that of people who had so many different interests. And they said that it was their Renaissance background that gave them insight into their science backgrounds, that gave them insight into their discoveries, into the things that the world knows them for. I mean, literally one after another. And so I think for me, it's been recognizing that part of my life message is encouraging people to be comfortable with checking multiple boxes, that it's okay to be themselves. They don't have to fit in the specialist way of narrow worldly thinking, that this is only who you are because this is what we currently value. And so I think it started in college, and it's been honed over the years.
One of my favorite things about the creators economy that we're in, and it's really going to expand the further we get into it, is that the days of niching out, find your niche, pick one sport and play it and master it, those days are over. Like, now we get to celebrate all sides of ourselves. And whether that's forced upon us or not, I'm ready for it and excited about it, because now for a long time, I've been resistant to niching. And that the algorithms award niching. I as a creative, I want to stay true to the art of what I create. So screw that. I'll just wait my turn. And now it's good to be a generalist. It's good to have expertise and interest in multiple things, and to discuss all of them, because the only jobs really are going to be available, in my opinion, moving forward, are the ones we create. The entrepreneurship, and yet that's why digital and media literacy is so important, is to understand the vehicles to put your message out on, and the variety of ways that you can do it. And so I celebrate that. I stand with you on that. And I think it's important. And it's also going to really allow us to, for myself, I mean, as somebody that has recovered from dissociative identity disorder, which used to be multiple personality disorder, one of the things that I love the most is that, like, I used to try to compartmentalize myself, and I hated it. And it was like cutting off a part of my body. Well, now that I don't have that, I still have all of these sides of myself, but I'm ready and positioned to showcase all of it because I've been doing it. But it's also allowed me to find my identity in that, and stand in that and be comfortable with who I am. So I feel like I'm really blessed and ahead of the game in some ways with that. And it sounds like you are too. This question's not planned, but for your students and other people that you associate with, do you see that trend changing naturally, or is it something that you think is more kind of being forced with people?
Oh, in terms of people seeing more of a importance of being a generalist?
Right, and showcasing more of themselves as opposed to only letting people see that one side that the algorithm is awarding.
That's a great question. I think I've seen kind of a bifurcated view. On the one hand, almost every student I've ever been around has a desire to express every part of themselves. And I think when they see an example of it, especially when I'm teaching them, they say it's actually possible that you can do these different things and be these different things and not sort of have to deny part of your identity. And on the other hand, they also recognize that they've seen so many of their examples from professors, maybe from parents and from society, that's telling them they have to check these boxes, from essentially online job postings that reward linear backgrounds. And so a lot of them feel like they're in this crazy tension where that they do want to do multiple things. And I think that they're going to do multiple things. And I see them regularly saying, I'm not going to have one career. I'm going to have 5. I'm going to have 10 careers. I'm going to see where things go. And these are some really bright and amazing students. And so I do think that that's where people want to go. I am in 100% agreement with you with the rise of the 4th and 5th industrial revolutions, with AI, with business uncertainty, with just everything that's going on, not just currently in the economy, but that will be going on in the future. It lends itself to people who are creative, people who understand how to build, people who understand how to problem solve and communicate, people who understand human psychology, people who understand how to get things done. And that doesn't reward people who know how to check boxes. So it used to be you could be a lawyer and you were safe for a career. You could be a doctor or somebody in medicine, you're safe for a career. And the reality is that AI is phasing out a lot of those roles. I mean, there's so many, like radiologists, they're being phased out in so many ways. A lot of the entry-level lawyers are being phased out. Even people who are going in these technical roles for a Goldman Sachs, etc., they're realizing that the AI is better at those things. And unless they're really good with creativity and really good with entrepreneurship, they're going to struggle. And I think that's why you see so many people pushing a universal basic income, because they know a lot of people are not trained in that. The average, this is crazy, Joshua, the average kid stops believing they're creative by 2nd grade because authority figures in school districts tell them you don't need that. And there's an inverse relationship. So the higher the SAT score, the lower the creativity. And so we're pushing everyone to get higher scores, but our creativity is simultaneously declining. And that's why we see so many amazing immigrants coming here, because they're saying, wait a second, these Americans aren't creative. We can go in there and outcreate them. Look at the head of Microsoft, the head of Alphabet, Google. They understand, hey, that's where things are at. And I think that's what we have to reorient education, reorient the economy around.
Unbelievable answer. Such a good answer. Gosh, dang it. This is so good. Okay. What's a moment teaching at UCLA that reminded you why you love what you do?
Ooh, it's every day. It is fulfilling, seeing their bright faces and knowing they're learning. I am not about grades. I'm about growth. And so putting an emphasis on the actual takeaway and seeing the aha, knowing that when I go in there, I tell them, you come in one way, but you leave a different way. Education is not about information. Education is about transformation. And so if I'm only feeding you data and information, but you haven't fundamentally reflected on that, you haven't taken that and applied it to your personal and or professional life, if you haven't become better as a result of that as a human being, then we're wasting our time. And I'm actually not serving you. I'm doing you a disservice because I am not equipping you to be the best version of yourself, the most skilled version of yourself. And so seeing the results of this, I mean, I have to tell you, Joshua, being able to see kids go on to get full rides to Berkeley for grad school. I just got a student who got into University of Pennsylvania for grad school, wrote a recommendation to Northwestern, have a Fulbright student, won I mean, several. I have 3 who are going into the NFL draft this year that I worked closely with. I had an Olympian from last year, Emma, and I had 2 Big Ten champions from the UCLA women's basketball team. And there are just so many stories of these students, and seeing how, if you go to my office and you see all of the thank you cards, and my wife, who went to UCLA 20 years ago, she said, I never saw that when I went here. And it's not because of me. It's basically saying, hey, these kids are valuable and I want to see them improve. I want to see them grow and transform. ChatGPT and YouTube lectures can do a better job at delivering information, but education is about the relationship. It's a mentor-mentee relationship, and we're investing in these kids' minds and in their hearts and in their souls and in their futures. And so every day reminds me of why I do it, and just seeing them succeed is really, really amazing.
So good. Of Kennedy and King, what drew you to weave Bobby and Martin's lives into a thriller?
Ooh, that's a fantastic question. I think, one, America's on the brink of a civil war, and that era was very similar. And they were able to, after hating each other, figure out how to put aside their differences just days before they're both assassinated. So they accomplished historic reforms together, but they still had a fundamental distrust of one another, and they realized, we have to put this to bed. And so part of it was believing that this is the book America needs right now. So that was kind of the overall. But in terms of it being a thriller, not just a historical fact book, I wanted people to be able to go immersively into the story and to feel the danger, to feel the psychiatric trauma, to be able to feel the PTSD that both King and Bobby went through. Bobby, when JFK was assassinated, a lot of people don't realize that he started wearing his brother's clothes. He mimicked everything he did. I mean, he became a totally different person. And same thing with King, with all the death threats that he had. And they went through a lot of pain, and so many others. And so I wanted to remind people of this story, that we've been there before. We have examples, and I didn't want it to be essentially one where you didn't feel. I wanted to tell an emotional history of both characters, but also the 1960s, of how we overcame, and use that as a blueprint for how can we navigate the 2020s and navigate the future. So really, it's not necessarily just backward looking, it's forward looking.
Amazing. So writing about such a heavy history, what's one truth you uncovered that really hit you hard?
I think that Bobby and Martin were mirrors to each other. And if you connect that to today, Republicans and Democrats are really mirrors to each other. You know, if you hear, for example, a preacher that's always preaching on a certain sin, and it's uncovered they have that sin. And, you know, I think so often we recognize the flaws in other people because we have those flaws, and many times we're unaware of it. And so they were basically the same person. They were both young. I mean, King was 31 when JFK was elected. Bobby was 34. They recognized, they were both stubborn. They both wanted their way, both educated and both famous. And they realized, wait a second, that's my mirror. And in fact, when King was assassinated, Bobby gave his greatest speech, and literally Bobby went back to his hotel room in Indianapolis, and he broke down and said, that was my brother. They killed my brother. They should have killed me. They should have killed me. And of course, a couple of months later, they did.
Yeah. And
he recognized we're two peas in a pod. And I think the same thing is true with Americans. If you look at the top 150 political issues, if you actually go into the specific policy details, people agree. For example, Democrats believe in climate change. Republicans believe in conservation. They're the same things. Yeah, Democrats want gun reform. Republicans in the 80+% want gun reform, including 84% of NRA members. So we're very similar.
Wow, I'm so happy you said this. And I don't want to talk about the subject in particular because we don't have time. But right now I'm working on something showing how Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, and Project 25 even though on the surface they look like they're at complete odds, they're actually the same thing, just with different language. And because I see all of these people fighting about issues and supporting the same issue without realizing that they're supporting the issue. And it's like, we have a serious problem right now. And I don't know if this is a media literacy issue. I don't know if this is an education. I don't know if it's a propaganda issue. But the fact is, are the leaders that we've had have been taking us down the same path, whether we realize it or not, and something has to change. I don't know what that change is, but the fact that we're fighting each other over issues that we actually kind of agree on, it's a weird thing for me to experience, but I'm trying to figure out the right way to explain it in a way that people can look at it and go, oh, because I would rather it be other people's idea that they see it for themselves, as opposed to doing what the media does and shoves it down people's face and say, this is what you believe. I'm not about that. Anyway, next question.
No,
That's a 4-hour conversation. I think we're going to have to do another interview, because your answers are so rich, and trying to get you to, like it's all so important. So, all right, for the sake of time, let's get, I want to get as many of these as we can done before you have to go. The creative leader. I'm excited about reading this one. This one, just the title alone speaks to me. What's the one spark you hope it lights in every reader?
That creativity is not an innate skill or innate talent. It is a skill that we can build. And that for so long, we've been told that there are only a certain limited number of creative people. But the reality is, creativity is the meta skill of the future. That is the number one skill we need to harness if we want to be successful in life and in our careers. And so that's, I think, one of the big takeaways of the book.
The creator created us to create, and we're in a creator's economy. What a time to be alive.
I love that
answer so much. You train leaders worldwide. What's the most unexpected place you've seen your ideas take root?
I would say in private equity forums where they're talking about pension funds and making investments in China, where I don't have any background or connection to that, but sometimes seeing where people will hear something, they'll hear a podcast, they'll hear a panel, they'll read something, and you then start seeing people who aren't connected to you who start sharing those same ideas. And I think for me, the biggest thing is seeing people recognizing the human element of leadership, how that's so much more important than achievement. Empathy is more important than achievement. We can shut this whole thing down, except for medical R&D. We can shut everything else down, and we're not going to lose much in the world.
So good. Mental and emotional health is huge for you. What's a practice that keeps you grounded?
Prayer and meditation every single morning, being connected to God, and praying long enough until you feel him talk to your heart in terms of guiding you in that direction, having wisdom, and because wisdom is different than knowledge. I think a lot of people are smart, but what good is it to know a bunch of things if you don't understand them? And so God lets us understand those things.
Such a good answer. Oh my gosh. What's a time you helped someone see a new perspective and it changed everything for them?
I think it's been great in the creative leader with my co-author, who's a producer of Jeopardy, Emmy nominee, and sort of showcasing that, because the book interviews producers, top producers, all the way from Brady Bunch to Hell's Kitchen and Blackish and everyone in between, that he has something to say, not just to people in Hollywood, but to any creative leader in corporate America, in entrepreneurship, in nonprofit realm, or in education. And so showing him that, wait a second, your insights, balancing budgets and logistics with art as a producer are important ideas that people need to understand, because every leader will have to start doing that. Moving forward. And so I think that's been really gratifying to see that, your niche doesn't just apply to your niche, that so many people can learn from you. And so that was super fun.
So good. As transportation commissioner in Los Angeles. Boy, that one, when I learned that about you, I'm like, really? What else does this guy do? As transportation commissioner in LA, what's a win you're still proud of?
Ooh, so that was an unexpected role. The mayor put me at 23, and they were like, "That's a baby face," and which I was, and the black on crack, and I would say that there was a time where, because we had a partly semi-judicial role where we could overturn certain laws if they were appealed in terms of individuals. So we oversaw, among other things, ambulance companies. And so the private investigator shut down an ambulance company of 100 people that serve low-income communities. They appealed it. They came into the board and they basically they said, "We want you to reinstate." So I led a motion to reinstate it. I was voted down 6-1 from the other commissioners. I led a second motion, voted down. Then I led a third motion, all in real time, and was able to have that company reinstated. So seeing 100 ambulance workers keep their jobs, being able to provide livelihood for their families and for their community was, I think, a huge win that I'm still proud of. Just being able to be in that position to do that because of sheer force of personality was really, really amazing.
That's really cool. That is a really cool answer. So your tech startup days, what's a lesson from that hustle you still lean on?
Ooh, so I would say it always takes longer and costs more than you think.
Oh my God, that's so true. Okay. What's a funny flop from your Hollywood set days that taught you something big?
I would say directing projects that never were released and recognizing that you can have so much momentum and that momentum can be shifted through no power of or control of your own, and that essentially we're not as powerful or influential as we think, and that's okay. That you just have to let your life unfold, your projects unfold. Some of them will be known, others will be tucked away. Some will be tucked away and they'll come back, but that's okay because it's not necessarily just about the end product. It's about who you become along the way, the lessons you learned during the journey of the project.
I swear you didn't get the questions ahead of time. I'm amazed that your answer. Now I'm convinced I've got to turn this show into a book too, because
you should.
This episode alone is, gosh, the answers are so good. Okay. How do you see storytelling healing a world that feels so divided right now?
Stories communicate identity. They communicate meaning. They communicate value. Stories are the things that the ancients passed on to us. They're the things that will pass on to others. Stories are life. And so without stories, what would we have? 65% of all personal conversations are based on stories. You think about the majority of people's leisure time, whether it be YouTube or TikTok or Netflix, based on stories. And so I think that stories have the ability to capture people's attention. And in other parts of the world, they've created stories that are uniquely healing with the purpose. And I just hope that more Hollywood creators understand that they're not going to lose their audience if they have stories that actually have a purpose, that actually are there to heal individual souls. And I think it's possible. I think the younger generation is recognizing that, and they want to do that.
I love that. I love that. Where do you dream of taking your mission to empower others in the next decade?
Ooh, that's a great question. I want to create a platform for authors and filmmakers to bring untold stories we've never heard of. We've seen remake and sequel after sequel. There's a reason for that in Hollywood, and it's an institutional conservatism. It's also a fear. People don't want to lose their jobs, and so they take the safe bets, but they're failing. And so to be able to create a platform where we're bringing new stories, and so I'm working on some things now for that, and been talking to some people and working on some projects to really usher in kind of a new era.
Hey, if I can be of any support because I share that mission with you, please let me know.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Please, I'm serious. I'm very passionate about that. Okay, this is the last question, and I've had so much fun. I want to ask you 50 more questions, but here we go. If you could share one piece of your soul with us, what would it be and why?
Say that the most important thing we can learn about life is allowing ourselves to be loved by God. Because when we allow ourselves to be loved by God, he transforms us more into his image, into the image of love. And that's the best gift we can give to others, is us being the most loving version of ourselves. But we have to receive love first before we can give love. And the world needs more love. And so whatever our profession, it's not about what we do, it's about who we become along the way. That's always been the purpose. Who are we becoming? And if we're made in the image of God, he is love. So we're made in the image of love. And so to allow ourselves to experience that, to really let God indulge his lavish love upon us so that we can do that to others. I would say if we can do that, then life's going to be a whole lot better for us. We can create heaven on earth, the people around us, by becoming more loving. But we don't have to force it. Just let God do the work.
Amen, 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 amen. Beautiful. This was so fantastic. Okay, so you get the last word, but what I would like for you to do here is please plug anything that you want to plug, but then also if there's anything else on your heart that you want to share, please do so. The floor is yours.
Well, Joshua, you are a gift, and truly you are. What you're doing for people, what you're doing for others, what you've overcome in your life, the inspiration that you provide is absolutely fantastic. I think your audience should really know that what you're doing is not easy. I don't know anyone who could have overcome your stories. I don't want to plug anything. I just want to thank you for who you are, for what you've overcome, for what you're giving back to society and to the world. And we need more of it. We need you. And I just really appreciate this opportunity to connect. And truly, sincerely, you are love in action, and you are giving people hope.
La vida, neto, neto.